I call the Honourable Member Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I just want to make 3 quick points as we approach the end of the committee stage, and I'll start by addressing the contribution by the Honourable Leanne Dalziel. Well, I'm quite sure if members have other meaningful contributions to make, they'll stand up. And the first relates to the issue of hollowness. And I think it would be, I would say, small is not hollow. The fact that the bill is, even now, was when it was introduced and is now small, does not make it hollow. And there is substance in it. The issue is certainly very important. I would also say that, yes, there was some complexity around the framing of the primary legislation, which meant that it was felt best addressed in the regulation, but that won't make the complexity go away. And I know that the Commerce Committee did hear from fundraising organisations who were not in support of this. And I think there is an element of self-interest by those organisations to the disclosure requirements that this bill, this regulation, when it is passed, would have. So I think that I think that I don't agree with Ms Dalziel that this regulation won't be put in place. I'm quite concerned that, quite sure that both I and the Honourable Amy Adams will keep on the Honourable Simon Bridges until those regulations are drafted, and that we will get there. I think the member Sam Lotuinga did address the issue that Mr Twyford raised about public disclosure of other types of fundraising events, not just cold calling. And I would draw members' attention to new section 28(1)(a) Roman 3, which does provide for a fundraising event, and they would fall within the description. And in direct mail, I am advised that any requests which come from a third party would be covered. Now, the member's description in his call, it was a little unclear whether actually he was clearly articulating between that direct mail, which is done by charities themselves, and that which is done by a third-party fundraiser. If it's from a third-party fundraiser, it would be covered by the disclosure requirements. The last thing I want to say is in respect of the member Raymond Ho's call in the second reading, where he raised the question about sanctions and penalties for non-compliance. He mentioned was it Rajan? I do apologise to Mr Ho. You're quite right. The member is quite right. It was Dr Rajan Prasad. And he raised the question of where are the sanctions, where are the penalties. So I can advise the committee that, in fact, the primary legislation provides at section 40 for there to be penalties for contravention of the provisions of Part 1, 2, 3 and 4, and those penalties would apply to the regulation. And they're onerous. For an individual, it can be up to $60,000 fine, and in the case of a body corporate, which is most likely to be the agents who are covered by the regulation, a fine not exceeding $200,000. So it is a significant potential penalty for those who do not comply with the Fair Trading Act, and most appropriately so. So the sanctions are there. I thank members for their contribution.
The question is...
I move that the question be now put.
The question is that clauses 1 to 4 stand par. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. I will report this bill without amendment.
Members, the House is resumed. Mr Chairman.
Mr Speaker, the committee has considered the Fair Trading, Soliciting on Behalf of Charities Amendment Bill and reports it without amendment. Mr Speaker, I move that the report be adopted.
The question is that the report be adopted. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The bill is set... Order. Order. Where... This part of the proceedings, it's my turn, all right? This bill is set down for third reading next sitting day. Call on Members' Order of the Day number 3.
Gambling